One of the cool things over at the StatsEdge Pro trading room is that the members are able to ask questions. Sometimes there's just something, right, I can just chat and do a little response to. We do monthly Q&As where we can really break down stuff, but sometimes they make for good video ideas. So we're going to talk today about Fibonacci because someone said, "Hey, is there any good videos out there about Fibonacci?" We actually have one strategy that is related to Fibonacci. So we can kind of use that as an example and then go from there. So basically, when we're talking about Fibonacci, we're not talking about the sequence of 1 plus 1 equals 2 and right 2 plus 1 equals 3 and so on and so forth. It's more about the pullbacks and the extensions and how people use those. I'm one that I don't believe that there's any magic in any of this because you can just test it. But some of these ideas can be translated into strategies and into pretty decent strategies. So let's just pop into this here where we can take a look at this. And this is the equity curve of the strategy that I'm going to reference here. This is a pullback strategy. Again, like with everything, I test it back from the year 2000 until the current date. You can see how this works. Again, not always winning all the time, some down years in general, but overall ends up making money over time. And the idea behind this isn't Fibonacci related, but I'm going to show you a sample trade that we are in right now, one that we took this week, and just show you kind of what we're looking to do. So first of all, I just want to go and let's just go to something like Apple and just move this out of the way and just talk about kind of the Fibonacci here as well. Because like most trading platforms, you'll have some sort of Fibonacci drawing tool, which you can mark up. Let's do the 618 as well. You can mark up, and then there's roughly these three areas right here that people will talk about: the 618, the 50%, and the 382. Now, these are Fibonacci kind of golden sequences. There's some people out there that believe that, because these exist in nature, that they're going to have something to do with the stock market or financial instruments. I don't really buy that at all. What I look to do is just say, well, 618, that's roughly 2/3, and 50%, that's halfway in the move, and then 382, that's roughly 1/3. And so what we're doing is we're essentially saying that, say the stock kind of looks something like this. It's moved up in this range from here to here. Well, if we pull back 2/3 of that move, that's going to be roughly this area right here. We pull back half of that move, that's going to be this area right here. Then we pull back 1/3, or it'd be the other way around. So this would be 2/3, half, and 1/3. That will happen right in this zone right here. So what people will often do is if they look for a large move, they're going to look for some sort of pullback or retracement in that move. And you got to pick something. So you either pick some sort of moving average or an anchored VWAP, but in this case, if you're just looking for, oh, I'm going to see if this retraces roughly half or 2/3 of the move and look to buy there, the Fibonacci tool can help you with that. And that's roughly this strategy that we just looked at, what it is looking at. So if we go to PORK, this is the one, PROK. This is the one that we're talking about right here. So if you look at this particular strategy that we have is looking for roughly the same thing. And I talk about this all the time with the pullback strategy, where we are looking for a big extension, something that has happened because there's been a huge surge in volume, there's been some news event, an earnings report, something that really pushed the price up. And then over that following week, that next week, we're looking for a pullback. I will say this strategy doesn't use Fibonacci, but it's a good example because it lines up. It uses roughly the same idea where we're looking for a pullback to a half to 2/3 into this range. And then from there, we look to buy. We know that if we get to the bottom end of the range, we're probably wrong because we're trying to pull back that 2/3 into the range. And then we have exit rules to sell on the next week. But what about extensions? So that's, when we're looking to pull back and do that, some people will then look for Fibonacci extensions. So the most common one that I see is the 1.618. And again, I just want to use roughly 1/3 or 2/3. So what this means is that if this move, for example, is 1, and then you get your pullback, and say that pullback works, currently we're about flat in this position, then where could it go from there? Well, a logical target might say, from this move to this move, I want 2/3 of this initial move in my target. And the reason to use something like 2/3 as opposed to just measuring that initial move and extending that out is because of the logic that to me makes sense, in which you're just saying each additional thrust may have a little bit less power than that first thrust. So the first thrust gets us, say, $10, and then maybe the next thrust gets us $6. So a little bit of a difference of a move from there. So that's the idea behind using that 618, and the main idea that, again, you're looking for a pullback somewhere between 2/3 to half to 1/3, depending on your strategy. And that's about it. Again, I'm very much of the opinion where, because we can test things now, we have back testers, we have a lot of access to large data, that there's no sense to really keep these things mystical, right? We're looking for pullbacks, and we're looking for some percentage of the move to get pulled back. A How deep you want that pullback to be, that's something you should be able to test in your strategy. You should be able to go back and say, do I want a huge pullback, or is there a point where if it pulls back too much, it's no longer a valid trade? Do I just want shallow pullbacks? And you can use a Fibonacci tool to help you with that. But what that number is, you should be able to test. So that's kind of the last thing I wanted to talk about here, in which you can modify these numbers. So the Fibonacci pullback tool in most charting platforms, they have their numbers in place, but you can change these. So say I actually wanted to do 1/3, I could go 3, 3, 3, 3. And let's say I actually wanted to do 2/3 on the way up, I could go 6, 6, 6, 6, right? And you can test and you could find where is the optimal pullback entry for your strategy. And you can test that either going through charts or running a back tester or doing whatever you'd want to do that. And when you find that optimal number, you can just go in and edit your indicator or edit your potential drawing tool here, and then you can be alerted and say, okay, I like this stock, but I know for my strategy I needed to pull back, 3/4. So I want that 25% of that move remaining, and you look to buy it there. No magic. If it was, again, arbitrage out of the market, but an interesting tool just to say, hey, if I'm buying pullbacks, I want the pullback to be roughly around this area. And if something's making a new impulse high, I think it should line up with roughly that area above. And by doing that, I think the benefit of something like Fibonacci is that it allows you a little bit of systemizing pullbacks and systemizing that pullback entry, where we hear it all the time, buy the dip, buy the dip, buy the dip. Well, what kind of dip? How far does the dip need to go? How far is too far for the dip? And a lot of things that you can answer very well for yourself just by pulling up the tool, doing a little drawing, seeing what pops out there. So I hope you guys like that video. If you are interested in doing something with pullback trading, we have a system, we have an algorithm for that. You can come over to StatsEdgeTrading.com, which you can just see right above my shoulder there. You can check that out. You can see I have the statistics for every single system we run going back 25 years. You can see what happened each individual month for 25 years for everything that's there. And then you can just sign up when you're there. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the room. Ask more questions. Maybe I'll make videos about them there as well.